Hi everyone, I hope I'm audible. Please let me know in the chat window if all of you are able to hear me clearly and you can see my screen. Okay, thanks for the confirmation. So I already have a question. So great to see that there is a question already. And Tanya, yes, we'll sort of try and tackle that as part of this session as to how do you get better at those things, right? So see, the agenda is very simple of today's session. We are going to essentially talk about the psychometric part and the descriptive writing part. So a lot of it is going to come from my own experience of taking MICAT as to how I went about these things. And I will also talk to you about what are the various ways in which you can get better at it. Okay, so I'll be giving you some, you can call them tools that you can use to get better, right? Most of the session is going to be on the descriptive writing part with very little bit on the psychometric. The psychometric is a very small aspect and it generally doesn't need a lot of preparation. I will still give you some 3 or 4 resources. We'll do one psychometric as part of today's session. It's not going to take a lot of time. I would be very happy if all of you try to complete it as we are doing this. Okay. The other thing is feel free to take screenshots. So whatever you want to make a note of, you can either write it down or just take a screenshot, right? Especially the past MICAT questions. I'm going to share a couple of MICAT last year questions or the prior year questions with you. Uh, if you want, you can take a screenshot of it. I'm completely okay with that. Okay. The session is being recorded. We'll try and put it on the MyMS dashboard, maybe by tomorrow also. All right. Aman, we'll do an exercise. So for the descriptive writing also, we are going to do an exercise. I hope all of you are using your laptop to access this or your computer because I would want at least one or two of you to do a submission. Okay, there are about 60 as I'm 65 as I'm talking right now who are there attending this. And will of course the number will go up, but I would want at least a couple of you to actually try this. I'll give you about 5 to 7 minutes to write that down, and we'll talk about it once we get. Okay. About the new pattern, okay, so technically in the exam, right, the only thing that has changed now is the options. So there are some questions where you have more options. Doesn't change the preparation strategy in any way, right? It just makes life a little difficult for people in terms of the deciding, especially in the verbal ability section. But otherwise, preparation doesn't change because of that. Okay. Yeah, see, GK also, though the agenda is not to talk about the other sections, but with respect to GK, right, no matter how much you do, you will always see questions that are beyond that. So if you're, let's say, complete the entire GK zone that is there, right, you will see that, okay, there is something which is beyond that as well. So there is no limit to that. And that is why you need to figure out that, okay, where can you maximize? So in the remaining time that you have, focus on the things that you can control largely, which is essentially your font, verbal, and all those things. GK, whatever you can do, do that. But then again, sort of, you can't really depend on it. Okay? Again, just to sort of put that thing right at the beginning, MyCat has never revealed what what an ideal score is or what the cutoffs are like, etc. They just reveal that you've got a call, you're not got a call, right? Typically, a safe score in MyCat has been around 50% of the way. Okay? So even if you look at the previous years, when it used to be 105, 110 mark paper and all of that, the typical good score used to be around 50, right? 45, 50, 55. Again, they have never revealed anything about the sectional cutoffs. It's a very different exam, let's put it that way, because they don't reveal a lot of it, right? Even the descriptive writing that we'll discuss today, they have never revealed as to where they use it, how they assess it. None of that is clear. Okay? The only thing that I know from, let's say, the discussions that we have had with even past students is that you just need to complete it and make a good job of it. Okay? So don't leave it incomplete, etc. Whatever descriptive writing you have, you just have to complete it and make sure that you do a reasonably good job. On the psychometric front, it's a qualifying in nature. So you either qualify or don't qualify. In all my years, I have met only one student who got disqualified in psychometric assessment. Okay, that is the only student that I remember who was disqualified. Rest everybody has qualified because again, there's nothing to prepare. I'll talk about it as we start discussing this. And again, one last final thing before we start is on the CAT and ZAT scores, right? So how much they matter, etc. Again, they have They never say as to, okay, this much score minimum you need in CAT or that, etc. It's just that if your CAT score is lower, you will need a very high score in MICAT to compensate for it, right? So that is essentially because it's ultimately combined weightage. If your CAT or ZAT score is lower, you need to have a high score in MICAT. Yeah, that weightage is there. So Arithro, that weightage is what they have given as to what is the weightage for CAT score, what is the weightage for MICAT score. All of that is there on the website. But they have never said that, okay, this is the minimum score that you need in MICAT or minimum score that you need in CAT or ZAT to qualify. That is something that they have not given. All right. So I think let's get started first. Maybe we can take those doubts at the end. A lot of questions I don't have answers to simply because the college themselves, they don't reveal it. Right? But whatever I can answer, I'll try and answer. But let's get started with today's session. We're at about 5 minutes past 8, so we're in a good time to start. We have a nice audience of 100 people now. So I think let's get started. So what I'll do is firstly we'll talk about the psychometric assessment. Right. Now, in terms of psychometric, again, understand that there is nothing to prepare, right? Everything is going to be about your own individuality, your own behavior, what your personality is like. And in any psychometric assessments, if you have sort of taken them in your life earlier, you will realize that it's an assessment, it's not a test. Okay, so to call a psychometric test also is generally not a good idea. It's always referred to as an assessment more than anything else, right? So this is just a quote by William Glasser, who is known for what is called a choice theory, and he says that we can only control our feeling and physiology indirectly through how we choose to act and think. Right? So he has given those. If you actually search for William Glasser Wikipedia page, you will see that there are some very brilliant points that he has given. The guy who is known for choice theory is a psychologist, and so on. So, but again, coming back to what psychometric is in MICAT, there are 150 questions to be covered in 30 minutes. Right? It's very, very important that you complete the psychometric test. Okay? Please don't skip any questions, right? There are no negative markings and all of that. So you have to just ensure that you complete it. So 150 questions to be covered in 30 minutes, which ultimately gives you 1 minute for 5 questions, right? So you have to be fast, you have to be quick and all of that. This year, they were close to about 30 true false questions. 33 was, I think, the exact number, but you can, they might not be the same number in the MICAT that you guys are going to face, right? So approximately 30 true false questions, approximately 120 on 8-point Likert scale. Okay? So Likert scale is basically from totally disagree to totally agree. And it is given in that format. So you don't really have to worry which is the extreme. Okay? So on all these scales, you would have seen, I think, Likert scales in your life multiple times. You essentially go to any restaurant and stuff and they ask you to fill the feedback. That is also on a Likert scale, right? So totally disagree to totally agree, right? Totally disagree being the lower extreme and totally agree being the upper extreme is what they have. Another thing is be honest and don't overthink. Right? A lot of times people try to overthink about these things and they want to answer in a particular way, in an idealistic manner, and all those things, right? It's not a good idea to do that because all psychometric tests have something called as consistency, right? So there is an internal consistency, reliability. So all these parameters that are there, they check for a certain set of traits, you can call them. Right? And the consistency is such that if you answer a particular question in one manner and you answer a similar question which talks about the same aspect in opposite manner, it actually nullifies the effect of it. Okay? For example, if let's say there is some question which is related to a behavior of a person who is largely an introvert, right? Whereas there is some question that you get and you have answered it in a manner which puts your personality as extrovert, right? So there is a clash between how you responded to those two questions. The best way that is why is to not overthink about these. Right? These are personality questions. You just have to see a question and answer it as quickly as you can. So don't try to manipulate your answers and stay true to who you are. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. A lot of people go very idealistic that, for example, they might not be friendly towards everybody. Okay? So let's say there's a statement which says, I am friendly towards everybody. And for some reason, the person thinks that, okay, I want to show myself in good light, so I'll go with totally agree, right? Which might not be the case. So that is why you have to go with what you are rather than trying to portray something that you are not. Also, be careful in terms of the terms that are there, right? So totally disagree, totally agree, somewhat disagree. So there is a level of sensitivity, and that is something that you can only answer for yourself. Again, as I said, remember that there are no right or wrong answers, and whatever mocks that you have taken. So if you take 5 IMS mocks, it's going to be sufficient practice for the psychometric test. Aim to complete it, right? You should definitely be able to complete it, and I don't think you will struggle to complete the psychometric test. Okay. Uh, Ritika was asking, how can we know what is the ideal profile MICA is looking for? Again, this is something that we have no idea about, right? I don't even know why they do psychometric tests, but since they do it, of course, we'll try to sort of practice for it, right? So what we are going to do now is I'm going to share a link with all of you. Okay, it's just a very quick psychometric assessment. It is not what you will see on MyChat, so don't worry. But this is just for you to get a flavor of what the psychometric tests are. How many of you have taken psychometric tests in the past? Okay, so you would have answered something at least, right? So I'm going to share a small link with all of you. Okay, so I want you to just try this out. It's called Mini IPIP. Okay, I'll also give the link on the next slide. Right. So this is what that link is. So just in case anybody has not got it in the chat window, let me just paste it again. Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll not speak much for another 3 to 4 minutes. It just has 20 questions, by the way. I want all of you to give it a try. Okay. Let's put timer at possibly around 3 minutes. Be calm. Just take it. Don't think about the sessions and all of that. Just be honest to yourself and respond to it. I have shared it in the chat window, so I'll paste the link again. You can also see the link here on the screen. Oh, sorry. Which one to select? Okay. I think it might be asking you for. Okay, let me also try to click on this and show it to you. Just a minute. Yeah, I guess it might have. Yeah, yeah. Wait. I'll tell you which one to select. Don't worry. Even I'm just opening the URL on the site. Right. So there are multiple ones there, but the one that you need to select is short personality test. Okay. On that page, just search for something called short personality test. It will say the mini IPIP is a popular 20-item measure of big five personality. Yeah, yeah. It will just take a couple of minutes for you to finish it. Though they have written 5 minutes there, it will not take you 5 minutes. You can take 5 minutes if you require, but it should be done in about 3 to 4 minutes also. You have to take mini IPIP, search for short uh, short personality test. No, there won't be any scoring here. I will, if you read the description, you will see what it is essentially talking about. Okay, so it will give you, I think it must have given you a graph, right? It must have given you a scale on 5 parameters, right? It would have done that. Okay, so it will show like a median 50 percentile thing, but it will also show you some graphs there because I am not going to take it right now, but I have done it, so I know how the outcome looks like. So it will show you a bit about your personality. Right? What I want you to do is just go through it. Okay? Not right now. You can save the output. Keep that link open. You can go through it later. Right? This is just for your own purpose. Okay? And beyond MyCat also, I would suggest that all of you to take some of these tests simply because you get to know a lot of things about your personality in a very scientifically validated manner. Okay? It's just that sometimes we think very differently about us compared to what we truly are. The psychometric test sometimes becomes sort of a wake up call that, okay, these are the things that could be the areas where you can develop, right? Again, there's nothing right or wrong. I'm going to give you a couple of more sources, right? I want all of you to again give it a try. There are some very good tests, and these will give you free output. There are a lot of paid tests also, like MBTI is there. There is something called FIROB, Fundamental Interpersonal Relationship Orientation. Not required. They are paid. The free versions might not give you the exact outcome also. These are all licensed to different organizations. So I just want all of you to give this a try. I will put all these links in the chat window so that you can save it. Just a minute. Yeah. No, no, you don't have to do them now, so don't worry. We did the mini IPIP. Okay. I hope all of you got some outcome. You have seen the output report. Just go through it later, right? You don't have to do it now. But this is for your own understanding of your own personality, and that's it. Okay. On MICAT, you're going to have 8-point Likert scale. Unfortunately, most of the psychometric tests that are existing don't really have such a long Likert scale. Okay? The ones that are free, so even if you take, let's say, the course learning style, I think that has 5-point Likert scale. The career anchors also has, I think, has a 5 or a 6-point Likert scale. The point is just for your own purpose to sort of get some practice of psychometry. Okay? You can take them at your own whenever you want to do it, maybe on the weekends. Yeah, just for your own risk. All right. Okay. Okay. So Gurjot has asked a good question. So I'll just answer it. He's asking that I hope I said he, but it could be she also. I'm very sorry for that. Gurjot is saying it tells that I am an introvert result, but also that I work good in a team. Gurjot, again, see, it highlights aspects of personality, right? And as I said, there's nothing right or wrong. Extrovert on also, or extraversion or introversion. It's not that introverts are always introvert and extroverts are always extroverts. If you actually read the definition of what extraversion is or what introversion is essentially people who derive energy by being in isolation or being in solitude, right? So there's a different definition. Introvert doesn't mean somebody who hates crowds and all those things, not like that. And again, people are not completely introverts or completely extroverts. Okay, so you'll get a lot of mixed outcomes, but it will be true. Most of it will be true. If you're not able to understand the question, should we mark the answer and move ahead? Okay, so in MICAT specifically, you don't have a lot of time, right? That is why I would always encourage you to just answer it at that point of time and move on. Okay, so it's 30 minutes. It's a very fast thing. I remember correctly, I think I had done in about 20-22 minutes when I had taken it. Unfortunately, I couldn't take it last year. So the year prior to that, I had taken the MICAT. I pretty much recall all the things that happened. So but I was able to finish it comfortably. Okay? And it's not very, very difficult to handle. But you have to be fast. All right. Yeah, a lot of you will end up doing some of these things when you go to B schools also. Career anchors, by the way, is a very good one. Again, it has a very nice description in that document. Okay, so those of you who are interested can definitely have a look at it. It will also, by the way, help you for your interview preparation. For your interview preparation, when you write your answers to different questions, right? You will be able to pick some of those things and frame your answers. Okay? So I hope that this will help. What are we looking for in the result? Aditya, you're not looking for anything specific. It's just a reflection. So it's like looking in the mirror. There's some feedback that the test has given you. You have to take it for what it is and see if there are any aspects that you can develop on. Okay. How can I evaluate IMS mock psychometric and descriptive part? The descriptive part, you can show it to somebody, right? So if you have anybody in your immediate circle who is generally a well-read individual or somebody who has good command on the language, and of course your mentors, your IMS mentors is the first thing. And after that, if you don't have access to somebody, if let's say you're a non-IMS student attending this today, you can show it to somebody who you believe has pretty strong command on the language and the framing and the so. Right? I'll talk about the descriptive part, so don't worry. We'll start about with that now because, as I said, there's nothing much to do in psychometry. Right? So this is just about first 20 minutes, and we are done with psychometric thing. Any doubts on psychometric? Let's close it here, and then we'll move to the descriptive part. How can we not qualify for the psychometric? Okay, sometimes people try to manipulate their answers, right? So they try to answer in a specific manner, and that what that does is sometimes it creates a contradiction in the internal consistency of the test. As I said, so even today you would have seen some questions, right? In the psychometric that you did. So if there's a question which largely talks about you being somebody who is trustworthy, right? And there is some other question which is related to maybe that you have deceived somebody in the past. Now, if the answers of these two things contradict, then there is a contradiction. right? And that will create a problem in the consistency, because some of the psychometrics, they have a plus minus system in their calculation. So not everything is added. Sometimes there are sentences that get subtracted also. So that is why you don't have to think a lot about the internal mechanisms of the psychometric, which is where the problem is. So students try to think that, okay, this is how I'm supposed to answer, right? Please don't do that. Whatever comes to your mind, whatever describes you the best, you go with it. You should be fine. Soumya, so the differences are very minimal there, right? But it's like saying one extreme and the other extreme. Or, for example, when you go to, let's say somebody delivers at your home, right? And it asks you for a, let's say, your feedback on a 10 points. Sometimes you give 10 on 10, right? There's absolute total agreement. You don't have any issue. But sometimes you give a 9, right? There could be a reason. That very fine difference that exists is something that you have to figure out. Okay? Uh, if you want to be safe, of course, you can say strongly, right? Or totally, whichever is the scale that sort of responds to or reflects what you feel, right? More than anything. But the extremes are very clear. They will appear in that order. So they will give a scale in front of you so that you don't get confused. You don't have to think which is the extreme. See, somewhat agree is, uh, let's say there are some questions where you have not formed a clear, uh, your own take on what uh, it is, right? So it could be you are sort of wavering in on two fronts. You sometimes agree, sometimes don't agree with. How different is strongly and totally? Not very different, but there could be some minor differences that exist. Again, it's very question centric, right? It's very difficult to say what's the difference in strongly and totally. So it's just that one of the extremes that they have defined is total. See, they could have done a 5-point scale also. They could have done a 7-point scale also. I don't know why they've done an 8-point scale, but anyway, it works for them. So we're not in a position to question. Neutral to a lot of questions is dangerous, not really. So it's not that, uh, that's not how it works. Okay, so just because you've answered somewhere in the middle of the scale, but what that also says is that there's no clear personality trait coming out. So what you need to understand is that all of us will have some sort of a dominant personality trait. Okay? If you actually see, there's, if somebody wants to check it out, Google something called strong interest inventory. You might not be able to take it because it's a paid thing. I think you need to pay at least like 1,500 to take the test. What the strong interest inventory tells is that there are 6 types of people. So realistic, artistic, social, enterprising, conventional, and so on. So there will be some dominant traits that will come if you honestly answer. Right? There will be 2 or 3 dominant traits that will come out. But in that test, if somebody tries to sort of rig the test and get all 6 areas, it's not going to happen, right? I mean, there's something clearly wrong that the person has done in terms of responding to the test. In MICAT, the totally disagree is the extreme. So totally disagree to totally agree. Okay. Uh, yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think let's move ahead. So psychometric, as I said, is qualifying in nature. They will just put it on your scorecard: qualified, not qualified. That's it. Okay. All right. Let's move on now to the next bit, which is on the descriptive writing. Uh, could you please repeat the name of the test? Okay, these are the 4 tests that we spoke about. The last one that I spoke about is called strong interest inventory, and again, it's a paid thing. All right, let's move on. Let's go ahead now to the main thing, which is on the descriptive part, because this is where we're going to spend majority of our time today. Couple of things. One is you have to approach it as quickly as you can while creating a coherent structure, and that is like the most important. Okay, so here I'm going to give you some sample questions. I am going to give you past questions. We'll do one exercise where I actually want all of you to try writing something. I'll give you 4 images, and I want pretty much everybody to try. And maybe some of you can actually share it in the chat window. I'll see if I can discuss it. And I'm going to talk about structure and how do you build stories. Um, some of you must be wondering how I'm talking about all of this when I am generally involved in quant and logic and all those sessions. Is because I also have taken courses in creative writing. So that is something that helped me. A lot of things that I understood about writing comes from those courses that I had taken in the past, and I'm just going to translate some of it into actionable too. Okay. All right. So now let's first understand what the descriptive format is. So you have four questions. You have to cover them in 25 minutes. It becomes a phenomenally intense exercise. So if I recall my MICAT 2 years back, the moment that thing started, right, you could hear the keyboards clicking, and that was just insane. Like everybody just typing as fast as they can. And in the test hall that time, of course, there's no COVID, so you had pretty much everybody sitting next to each other, and people are just going berserk. And I had that. I felt that at least one person will possibly break the keyboard, or will have that Spider-Man moment where the keys have just sort of on the fingers of that person. Right? So it's very intense, by the way. But what you need to understand is if you're able to capture very clearly what you want to say, right, you should be fine. And they have never revealed how they evaluate this, by the way. So I have spoken to a lot of people who have gone to MICA and have asked them, tell me where do they use this? And the answer is that nobody knows that. So they don't use it in the interview. They don't do it when you go for your group exercises and personal interview. They don't use that. How they evaluate, nobody knows. But again, let's not even discuss it then because we don't know. Q1, Q2, Q3 are connected by a theme. So you will see that the first three questions are interlinked by a common theme, and the format is standard. So you don't have to worry about the format. It will appear pretty much in that same format in the MICAT QL. The Q4 part of it is important, which has a random story writing, and the marking scheme is this: that Q1, Q2 is 10 marks each, Q3 is 20 marks, and Q4 is 30 marks. Which is the Q4 is like the most creative part of things. It has the maximum weightage of 30. Okay, so 10, 10, 20, and 30. Then now there are some actual questions that I'm going to share with you. If you want, you can take a screenshot. So this is the first one. This is from MICAT 22. I should have called it 21, but anyway, the December one that happened. Okay, so this was the question that was asked. The cultural diversity is celebrated while individual efforts are made to assimilate the differences into the mainstream. Why should we desire diversity? Now, in Q1, what you have to do is you have to present 3 points for the topic and you have to write stuff on that. In Q2, you have to present 3 points against the topic. You have to write stuff on that. And then you have to write a 300-word answer. Again, note that it need not be exact 300. Even if you write 230, 250, 280 words, it's going to be completely fine as long as you do a decent job of writing. Okay, if you have made your point, you don't have to ensure that you go to the exact 300 word thing. They just say write a 300-word answer, right? So to suggest steps by which by which a young manager can ensure creativity and innovation, keeping in mind homogeneous focus. Now, sometimes what happens is you might not get the entire thing right as to what is happening. So what you need to keep in mind is if I am able to make those points right, if not, let's say describe the whole thing, just give some examples. We'll talk about how to generate examples and all of that. Okay? Whatever words that you can understand, at least try to get that part correct. So, for example, here there are some words that you might not have heard of. Maybe homogeneous cohorts, you don't know what the concept is, right? But you know what homogeneous is, right? At least you studied for CAT, so you know mixtures and homogeneous. In school also you would have done it. So homogeneous is something which has similar structure. Cohort is a group of people. So try to break it down for yourself. Whatever you understand, write something on that. This reminds me of a that essay topic which had come a couple of years back, which had the word jingoism in it. Now, a lot of people were like, "What is jingoism?" They have no idea what jingoism is. Right? So, typically, if there is something that you don't understand, it's okay. Whatever you have understood based on the question, right? You know that okay, it is talking about cultural diversity. Present 3 points for the topic. Okay? So, you can talk about, for example, if you have worked in a company, then you can say, okay, how sort of all inclusive policies you have which sort of respect diversity, right? If you have been part of, let's say, a sports team, you can say that, okay, we had these cultural differences and how it helped. Whatever it might be, you have to present some examples. Right? The examples give you ideas, and generally, again, it can happen both ways where idea comes first and then you get the example. A lot of times you'll get example first and then the idea. So you have to just frame it correctly. You can write bullet points if you want to ensure that, okay, bullet one, bullet two, bullet three. You can just say one, two, three. Okay, that is how you can. So you can say, okay, one, this, two, this, three, this. Okay, that is up to you. You are free to decide how you want to write it, and or you can what you can also do is say first, second, third as a word, and not necessarily put it as digit one, then you put that open bracket and then you write, then two and then you write. You can say first, second, third. Okay, that is also fine. You have to explain it. Okay, so when they say present 3 points for the topic, you have to write something on that. So it's not just saying two or three words about it. You have to actually write it down. Now, some more examples. We'll do an activity. So don't worry. We're going to not on this. We'll not do an activity on this, but I will give you some pointers on how to generate those points. Okay, let's move ahead and we'll take another topic that has appeared in the past. This was MICAT 2020. Uh, so environment. Now let me ask you guys, if you have to write something related to environment, do you have examples ready at this point of time? How many of you have at least a couple of pointers, examples related to environment? Share something with me. Share in the chat window. Chipko movement. Okay. So Pranshu is saying Chipko movement. Okay. Related to environment. Environment day. Okay. So Avinash is saying environment day. Uh, Oil spill is what somebody said. Global warming, El Nino effect, SDGs, fossil fuels, sustainability, Paris Agreement, Green Revolution, biodegradable waste, UNEP, Green Revolution, whatever. The point is, if you have something already in your mind, it becomes very easy for you to write. Okay. If you are able to bring those examples, it will help you to put a structure together. I'll give you, there are some frameworks that we use. So earlier it was called Pestle, which then became Steeple. I'm going to give you that Steeple framework and show you how to sort of use it. Let's go ahead and I'll show you another question. So this was my MICAT that I had taken 2 years back, and I had this topic. Okay, so I started the descriptive part and I was like, just say topic. It was very interesting. I'm like fundamentally a very lazy person, so it worked really well. So laziness, how it can help. Right? So you have to write 3 points for the topic. Uh, Laziness against the topic, and then suggest ways by which a young manager could ensure laziness as a tool for organizational success. So in Q3, I remember I had written a quote. It was not an exact quote, but I remembered Bill Gates mentioning this at some point of time, that if you want to find the most efficient way to solve a problem, you basically give it to the most lazy person that you have, and that person will find the most efficient way to do it. Right? So a lot of jugards that you would have seen are from people who are kind of lazy or want to make life easier for others, right? So how it can be used for organizational success is again the entire laziness bit, right? That if you're lazy to do some monotonous work, for example, if you're lazy to let's say work with a lot of Excel sheets, right? What you do is basically you do development of software which will make life easier for you. So right, so that is organizational success. Laziness could be something else, right? In some other context, you can use it for your own advantage. So you can think about topics. It's just that you have to, on that spot, you have to think in different possible directions. Okay? What about you guys? If this was the question posed to you, what would have been your answer? Tell me, how can you use? Let's talk about Q3. How can a young manager use laziness as a tool for organizational success? Let's have some discussion. Let's see what people think of. Shortcuts, right? So Garima has given shortcuts as an example. Automate functions, yeah, Kinjal, this is what I was talking about, that you basically try to automate things Jayanta is saying lazy people are very intelligent. Again, you have to put it correctly. You can't say that, okay, lazy people are most intelligent and all, but just work on the framing of it, right? Reward for saving resources, that's a very valid point, Gurjot. That if you are saving something, so you came across something and you're lazy to do it, now you've found a way to automate it, you're basically saving resources, right? Informal or casual work environment. Okay, this could be both actually, right? Your organizational success is not essentially only about formal setup. Try to reduce the efforts, use of technology, innovative solutions, saving time and energy. Um, okay, I think most of it has been around that. It will help people leave early. Yeah, perfect. I think Vaibhav has made a very valid point that if people sort of complete their work early because of the whole automation bit, right? They can leave early, they can be very more happy and productive employees and so on, right? So that's the thing that you need to do, right? Today, while we are discussing it, you maybe a lot of you have not seen this question earlier. But the moment you saw it today, right, you started thinking in different directions as to what examples can I give that will help me to make that point. So now what I'll do is I'll also share uh, again some more sample questions. This is an old paper. I actually had a very old MICAT paper, so I thought I'll just share it with you. And so this topic was larger states should be divided into smaller states. A very interesting topic and very simple also to sort of work with actually. So why would you divide things in smaller states? Yeah, Gaurav, perfect. For governance efficiency, if you have smaller things to handle, the efficiency increases. Soumya is saying there are less conflicts. Arithro is saying micromanagement, which might be useful in some way. But micromanagement can also act as a negative point for Q2, right? Easy to manage. Better use of budgets is what Ananya is saying. It gives importance to everyone. Budget allocation, crime reduction, very valid point, Virali. um, Resources, the division of resources is what Gautam is saying. So that could be a positive as well as negative point, right? So one way it could bring efficiency, but the other way it could be that the two states that get created because of it might have some conflicts also, because they one area might say that the other area has larger resources, right? Yeah, so there are a whole lot of things that can be done because it's a very generic topic, and the moment you have slightly generic topics also, it becomes easier to generate. So what we'll do is, I want first of all of you to just note down these questions. Give it a try at home, right? Just try to write something on this, time yourself in appropriate manner. So this was the first slide. Siddhant, you can do in either ways. So again, just to answer for everybody, Siddhant is asking whether 3 points have to be made as bullet 1, 2, 3, or I can put it in para also. You can put it in para also, Siddhant. The only thing that I would suggest you to do is you write down the words first, second, third. So you can say firstly, secondly, thirdly, or you can say first, second, third, or you can put number 1, 2. Okay, so just that whoever reads it has very clarity that okay, this is three. They don't ask more than three, Arithro. So whatever I have seen, they have never asked more than 3 points. Okay, so don't worry. Q3 also can be paragraph. See, essentially, how you write is up to you. Right? It's just that you have to uh, give it a nice structure. It should be nice, easy to read. People should be able to understand because these are the 3 points that you have made. All right. Let's move ahead. Hey, there is somebody here who has taken MICAT 1, right? Is there anybody who has taken MICAT 1? Okay. Did you guys have a word counter? Was it there or because I remember that time it was there. I just wanted to verify that whether it was there. Yeah, so everybody is confirmed it was there, so don't worry. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the word count. Otherwise, it's like it would have been mighty painful for people to handle. All right. I hope people have taken screenshots of this. Let's move ahead. By the way, there is this nice research also on what is the average sentence length. So if you read, I think pre 1900, like Victorian era and all of that, the sentence length used to be long. So if you read say something like a Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, the first line itself is like very long. So now the length of the line has become much shorter. So the average these days is about 15, 14, 15. That is how it is. Whereas earlier it used to be very high, north of 50, 55 and all of that. Okay. So these days the sentence length has become much shorter. Anyway, I think let's move ahead. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about is the generation. How do you quickly start thinking about different points to talk about? Right? There are some frameworks. I think one of them is SWOT. A lot of you would have heard of this: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. Right? SWOT, SWOT analysis. But sometimes SWOT might not give you examples. It helps you to think. So, okay, if this is the topic, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? But it has to be a topic which demands SWOT. There are some topics which don't demand SWOT. So then what you need to do is use this as an example. So what I've done is steeple is basically social, ecological, environmental, economical, political, legal, environment. You can also add another S to this, which is called sports. You can bring in examples. So if you want to make a point, so what I've taken is I've taken topic as gender gap in terms of pay. Okay. So the way males are paid versus females are paid, it's not commensurate. So if you actually read, let's say, some IMF report or World Bank report, you will see that there is a big gap there. Right. So if I recall correctly, for every 100 cent that a man earns, I think women earn close to about 50, somewhere around 45, 46, or something like that. That is like a global average. So there is a gap in gender pay. Now, if this is the topic, say some questions related to gender pay gap, how do you bring examples? So you will have to think, is there anything that I've read or seen? Seen is very important here. A lot of us watch crazy amount of YouTube, right? Or some entertainment shows or whatever, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all those. You would come up with examples. If you are somebody who watches a lot of TV, YouTube, whatever it is. So if you have, let's say, read something or watched something related to, maybe you watched a small reel on some economist explaining why women are paid less, or you have read a entertainment piece that Kareena Kapoor was told after claims she demanded rupees 12 crore to play FIFA, right? I think there was something on Deepika Padukone also, who I guess asked the same amount as the male lead, and then they asked her to basically get out from this movie. We are not going to do it. Right? So maybe that is an example. Uh, you have read a tech article wherein it essentially speaks about how women, there are of course a lot of female CEOs in technology now. So what is their opinion on the gender pay? Or let's say in Wimbledon, right? So earlier there was this whole controversy. I think a lot of female players had picked that they're not paid. The Wimbledon male champion versus female champion, they're not paid the same amount. Right? So now they have sort of taken corrective action on it. There could be a whole lot of things that you can bring in. So here, I have thought of 4 examples. Even you have to think of 3. So when you get your topic, think of 3 examples, right? It could be largely from different areas as much as possible. It could be, let's say, so one thing that I've picked is entertainment. I have picked economics. I have picked sports, and or rather, you can call it on social also. And 4, I have picked technology. Examples. So Arundhati is asking, can we give examples of from Bollywood movies, etc.? Yes, but again, depends on how you put it. Okay? So Anshul is saying Jennifer Lawrence had protested for equal pay. Yeah, that's again a very good example. Um, Examples usually express the same notion. Does that work? Arithro, yes, they do because they substantiate a point. So if you want people to remember something, right, you basically use an example. Now, how to manage time, and that is why this whole thing, right, that you keep some examples ready. The point of attending today's session is this, that I give you some tools that you can use. So what I would suggest is all of you uh, read the headlines, right, of or articles related to these areas and keep some pointers with you. For example, let's say you read about technology. Recently, Microsoft acquired that gaming company for like an insane amount, right? So that is the headline. If you remember a lot of headlines under each of the fields, you will be able to come up with some. What are the sources? There are multiple sources where you can read. I think you can definitely check out Medium. So on medium.com, you'll see a lot of articles that you can pick up. Right? Well, see, the sources are like infinite. One of the sources that I like to refer to is something called QZ. I don't know how many of you have seen it. Search for QZ.com. But in for Indian stuff, I think there are a lot of other sources also. Like Scroll is there, which had some very interesting things. Huffington Post, by the way, had some very interesting things across different subjects. So you can also check out maybe Huffington Post a bit. All right. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll go to the image part, because this is the one where again it requires a fair bit of discussion. Uh, can we use examples of personal life? Yeah, you can. Absolutely, you can. There's no reason why you should worry about that. So if you have a topic and you have a personal example that you want to talk about, you can mention it. Not a problem. Okay, I'll just take a couple of more questions before we get there. Is there any restriction in Q3? Okay, so let's kind of go back to the Q3 bit. Right? So is there any restriction in Q3 is what Darsh is asking, like neutral answer, repetitive answer, and conclusive answer. Okay. So it sometimes carries an additional line that you're not supposed to repeat the points. So if you recall the 2019 one that I showed you, right? Clearly they had written that you're not supposed to use any of the earlier points that you have written again. So then you have to think of something else. It's your individual. Even if you look at the old paper, slightly old, but if you read the last line of this, right? Please note that no marks will be given for expressing your view on both sides of the argument. And they have said that you have to present your own view in 45 to 50. And this is the old one. So it's not the current format. However, the important thing is the more diverse points you bring, the better. So don't just keep on talking the same thing again and again in different words. Right? So, I mean, it's like saying, I like sweets. Then you say, I like cake. Then I like chocolate. Then I like something else. Essentially, you're talking about the same thing, right? That you like sweets. Okay, what is the ideal length? Okay, so let's understand it this way, that first of all, the marking scheme, if you look at, it's 10, 10, 20, 30. Okay. Majority of your time is going to go on the last question because it requires more creative thinking compared to the first three questions. And because the first three questions are interlinked, while you're thinking of one question, you get ideas of the other questions also. So for 25 minutes, my split would be 15 minutes for the first three questions, 12 to 13 minutes for the first three questions, and the remaining time for the next. But what I would try to do is try to finish it in about 18 to 20 minutes and then improvise. So you write the minimum required version and then you improvise. I'll detail that out a little bit in due course of time. All right. So now let's talk about, let's move ahead and the picture story. Right. This is like the most uh, interesting part, but at the same time it's very challenging also because people don't have the habit of doing this, so it's like taking people out of their comfort zone. How many of you actually write? How many of you are writers? I mean, you've written in the past, you've done some creative work, college magazine editor, writing poems for yourself and all those things, right? If you have done it, great, it helps you, but even if you haven't, it's okay, right? You can get better at it. But I want all of you to practice writing over the next 5 6 days. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You have to ensure it that you do it on your keyboard and not handwritten. Okay, so what I want all of you is, as we are doing this, right? I'm showing four given pictures in a sequence. So what you have to do is you have to specify the sequence. Very, very important. You have to specify the sequence of the images because the images will have a letter. So it will have A, fire extinguisher, B is a horse, C is, let's say, bricks, and D is the QR code. Now you have to write a story based on. I'll show you some more questions and then I'll actually get into how do you start writing. Okay, but let's go through questions first to see what different sort of things can come your way. So this was from MICAT 21, the December paper that was there. This was 2020. Yeah, I have not used the exact images, Vaishvi, so it's like, I mean, very difficult to get those same images, right? Because you have seen it on screen, you might not find the same. Mansi, I'll talk about it, but I want all of you to just note down the questions first. Uh, that's a chair. Generally, it will be visible. Maybe today, if you're watching it from a small screen, you might not be able to see clearly. There's a clear blue sky, there's some water, and there is some art. The previous one was this fire extinguisher, horse, bricks, and QR code. I'll give you one more question. So this was from my paper that I had taken, and so I'll tell you what my story was. Right. So this had a drone kind of a structure on a beach. Right. There was a window slit kind of a thing, and there was a mall, and there was a red colored house. Yeah, there were four images. So the story that basically I wrote was that I was on a Sunday morning. I was thinking of I was looking outside the window through the slit, and I was thinking about different ways to how can I kill my time. And then I saw that there was this bee that entered through that window slit in my home. And at the same time, the movie Makhi was being shown on TV. This is what I've actually written up, by the way, so I'm not joking. And the more creative you get, it's completely fine. You can do that. So there was this movie Makhi which was they were showing on TV, and I got an idea that okay, let me go and build a drone which is in the shape of a bee. So I decided to go out, and then I moved out and whatever. So I on the way I encountered a red house. Then I went to the mall, got those things, and took inspiration from the movie and built something. So there was a story on this. This was the essence. I have not, of course, given you the entire sentence because I don't remember. But this was the plot. The plot can be whatever you decide, right? There's no clear definition of what the plot is. The sequence is what you need to mention. So the sequence that I went to was Windows, B, then that red house, and the mall. Okay. So you could have decided some other sequence. Your story can be something completely different, right? Which is completely. Uh, do you need to give a title to the story? No. Okay. There is no requirement that they have given at any point of time that you have to give a title. But you have to specify the sequence. So what we'll do is we'll do an exercise. Uh, okay, one more example. This is from an old paper where they used to give six images. So there are dogs, there is eagle, uh, and whatever there are birds. Then there is some cute little kid like an angel. There's a monkey with gun, and there is I think Sam Elliott, but you can consider it to be a cowboy. So now you have to write a story. So you have to think in various ways. You have to be like a script writer of a movie and think what all you can do with the stuff that you have. Now, what we'll do is I will take you through the writing element and then we'll do an exercise. Okay? So I just want to give you some things to think about. Maybe you can try and implement. Uh, okay, so uh, there is something called the Pixar pitch. Some of you might have heard of it, some of you might not have, but let's for benefit of everybody, I'm going to give it out there. What Pixar pitch is? I'm sure everybody has seen at least one Pixar movie. Maybe Toy Story, Finding Nemo, whatever. Right? There are a whole lot of Pixar movies out there. There was a person who basically said that all Pixar movies have a have the same plot. Plot in the sense they're built on six main ideas, and what those six ideas are. Right? Whether you see, I think Wally, Up is also there. Whole lot of movies. Once upon a time, every day, one day, because of that, until finally. So what I'm going to show you is again a piece that I took from that Pixar story rules is Finding Nemo, but written in six lines. Okay, so let's go through it, and we'll be using these exact same the phrases to write that story. Okay. So what is the story of Finding Nemo? So once upon a time, there was a fish named Marlin who was extremely protective of his only son, Nemo. Right? Isn't that how the entire Finding Nemo story begins? Right? Now, every day, Marlin wanted Nemo off the ocean's dangers and implored him not to swim far away. So, if you remember the movie, the father is very protective. He's like the son should not go beyond a certain level. But one day, in act of defiance, Nemo is like protesting nature. I'm not going to listen to my father. Nemo ignores his father's warnings and swims into the open water. Because of that, he's captured by a diver and ends up in the fish tank of a dentist in Sydney. Because of that, Merlin sets off on a journey to recover Nemo, enlisting the help of other sea creatures along the way. Right? So you have that tortoise, right? That he meets in the Merlin meets in between. You have those sharks that he meets in between. So there are a whole lot of things that are there, right? Until finally, Marlin and Nemo find each other, reunite, and learn that love depends on trust. If you pick any Pixar movie, you will be able to write it in 6 lines, is what that whole thing was about. Now, what you need to think of is, yeah, and of course, as Gautami said, Dory is there. I sort of became forgetful and missed Dory, but Dory is there. Right? Any movie that you take of Pixar, you should be able to write it. I think you can do it for any general movie also. Are you able to relate this to storytelling? Is everybody clear as to what I'm trying to convey? That a story has common fundamental stuff. कुछ तो हुआ. And if you see any Bollywood movie also, there are definite plots, right? There is a revenge plot, there is a love story plot, there is a betrayal plot, uh, there is a loss of memory plot, there is the Batwara plot, right? दो बेटों के बीच में the entire thing gets split and there is some problem, right? So there are some common plots, and if you're able to relate plots and your whatever that you are going to create, it becomes a little easy. So what we'll do is I'll tell you how to connect images, right? First is make quick points. Whatever image that you get. So if it is an image, try to think of some different sensory things that are associated with that image or different aspects of that image. For example, let's say you can see in my house there's a racket now. Right? So what all things come to your mind when you see a racket? Think of some words, think of some people. So for example, badminton, of course. Then maybe Saina Nehwal, your favorite player, right? Maybe it's how you played in your school. Right? Maybe it's about a movie that you watched related to badminton. Right? Maybe it's something else. Some people are saying mosquito killing, which is also correct, absolutely correct. There are a whole lot of things that are there. You have to think of those. Uh, if you do a lot of research on how people write novels, you will see that there is something called the post-it note method to write novels, where people keep on writing ideas that come to their mind on post-it. They put it, and then they arrange it into a story. So to make some quick points on the images there. Let me give you an example again. Uh, let's say water bottle. What all things come to your mind when I say water bottle? Tupperware. Pallavi saying Tupperware. So brand connect she has got here. School, thirst, distillery, school days, Milton, dehydration, travel. Great. The material that is used, maybe it's plastic bottle, maybe it's glass bottle, maybe it's some sort of a thermal bottle. Uh, Anshul, I think the Anshul has given a good example. I'm just going to put it in better terms. Those of you who watched Mela, how many watched Mela movie? Uh, Amir Khan and Twinkle Khanna and so on, right? So there is a scene about bottle. Those who have watched it know what I'm talking about. Those of you who haven't, of course, you can check it out on YouTube. Okay, Nikhat has said 127 hours. Again, different examples. You are coming up with points here. You have to ensure that you connect those four images to build a story. All right. So think of movies, books, articles that you have read in the past. Very, very important. The way I was able to get that Makki as a movie after seeing a bee. If you're able to bring some movie or if you're able to bring some book, maybe an article that you've read, and you remember that plot. I was talking about plot some time back, right? What is the plot that you want to talk about? Now your story may or may not have a plot, by the way. That's okay. My story didn't have a plot. I mean, it was a very simple plot. It's not like a typical Bollywood kind of plot. But otherwise, your story can have these. Your story can be a murder story. Your story can be a rags to riches, a revenge or a betrayal or achieving dreams, conquering all odds kind of a story. That's completely fine. It does that. The images that you get are sometimes very arbit, and to connect them, it might become a little very important. Decide the sequence that you want to work with. However, if you are somewhere in the middle of the story and you are able to come up with a better sequence of the last two images, feel free to switch them and then just change the thing that you have written initially. Okay? So to begin with, you would have written the sequence that I have chosen is say A D B C, and you start writing. You have covered point A, image A. You have covered image D. Now, if you have written B C, you have to ensure that it goes in that order, right? But if you suddenly, for some eureka moment, you're like, oh no, C sounds better. If I cover it first, after that I'll do B. Just change it at the top, make it CB, and just write the story. So you can be flexible a little bit, but I would suggest that you frame the entire thing first, which is the fifth point, that you create a 5-6 line version in your head first, and then you write it. And any story, you think of any story, you can describe it to somebody in 5 to 6, no matter what. For example, let's talk about Drishyam. One of my all-time favorite movies is Drishyam. So, can I explain Drishyam to somebody in 5 6 lines? Absolutely. There is a family of four, right? There is one guy who is whatever creating trouble for a lady. One day he comes to meet her, whatever, and then that person is killed. And then Ajay Devgan sort of ensures that he creates a story and saves his family. You can explain it in 5 6 lines. No? 2nd October they went to ashram is what people is saying. This is also true. So whatever you do, if you make a mental version, a lot of people, that is a common mistake. They will start writing. They see a crow, they will start writing. अरे भाई सोचो तो थोड़ा मतलब crow के बारे में क्या लिख. You have to you possibly get that 1.5 minute to think of your story and create a 5 6 line version in your head. Then you have to translate it on. So what I'm going to do is all of you. I hope all of you have your laptop with you. We are going to do an activity for the next 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to. I don't want you to complete it because 5 minutes might be too short. In the actual test, you might take maybe 10 or 11 minutes to write it. But I just want at least some of you to give it a try. That in 5 minutes, what is the story that you can come up? So let's start the timer. I'm going to show those images to you, and I'm not going to speak anything for the next 5. Yeah, sequence you can write in whatever sequence. So you don't have to use A, B, C, D. You can say my sequence is B, A, C, B, B, A, C, D, whatever. But whatever sequence that you mentioned in the beginning, Bhavya, you have to write the story in that sequence. Okay. Anyway, I think we are at 5 minutes past 9. Let's spend the next 5 minutes doing this exercise. Okay. So this is the yeah, and as I said, improvisation can happen later. Okay. So you have the activity. Keep your WordPad or Word or Notepad or whatever it is ready. Yeah. So start. Once you're done after 5 minutes, those of you who want to share can share your submission. I might use one of those submissions to show it to you, but anyway, I have like a submission for this, okay, that I want to show you as a sample. Okay, the time starts now. Okay, so we're done with 5 minutes. Of course, the aim was not to even complete the whole. Okay, so whatever you have done so far, right? I think I saw some submissions in the chat window. Very good effort. I think a lot of people have tried this. Just going to read out some names. Mansi Mathur, Aditya Chaudhary, uh, have Aritro, Ananya Johari, Gagandeep. So I'm just going to read out some plots that people have picked, not going to go through the entire thing. So Gagandeep is essentially talking about that he had a fed up mood with hectic schedule and all of that. He was not able to get any vacation. So on a full moon night, he was dreaming of somebody knocking on his door. Right? He went on to see, found no one but an envelope. He opened it and found that there are Goa tickets in it, and it was booking at one of the best solo travel destinations. He had a flight to catch in the next 8 hours. and next morning he's chilling on Baga Beach, and Goa can be traveled solo too. And he's basically going to expand on that, right? So that is the plot that Gagandeep has picked. That he was at home, he was pissed that he was not getting vacation. There was a knock on the door. He opened it. He found a letter. It had tickets to Goa, and he went to Goa. Right. So that's the story that he's going to expand on. Right? Um, then I think Ananya has picked a similar plot where she's essentially talking about having sort of tickets to Cape Town. So it was a more fancy location. Um Chirag is talking about craters on the moon, how Neil Armstrong must have felt. Suddenly he heard some thudding at the door, frightening, and then his leg started shaking. But he was lifted up magically in the air and he started heading towards the moon. Right. The next moment he was awake and it was a nice dream. Aman is saying that his family had not come to meet him for a long time, past 5 years, haven't met due to COVID, and he planned that he'll go on a beach. It was like a dream day, etc., etc. Again, they were talking about some having green wall towards the end. Right? Arithro started with the beach. So Arithro is on the beach already and is talking about having a pleasant day, sipping on some things that I'm not going to say now. Uh, a few seconds passed and he got knock on the door. It was 3 in the morning. He opened it. He was petrified. And there's a letter. He opened it and it said, "You are not alone in the house." Okay, so that's scary. Arithro has gone the scary route. Of course, a lot of great submissions. So Anand, Radhika, Akhil, Tanvi, Nishad, and I guess if a lot of people have been able to write at least about, if I can sort of just take a count, right? Roughly, a lot of people have contributed already 8 to 10 lines. It will not be difficult for you to write if you expand your horizons. You think about what plot you want to talk about, right? Most of you have done 8 to 10 line submission and people have chosen different things, right? So Aditi Sharma here has chosen A, D, C, B, and she's talking about how she remembers the night that changed her life. It was a full moon. She was on a beach. She had applied to some colleges. As she walked home, she wondered where things went wrong. She was too immersed in her thoughts, and she stumbled upon a yellow letter of her dreams. Right. So people can pick different things. Right. I'm very happy that sort of people have chosen different plots and have gone with what they felt to be the right. This is what you have to do in the exam. It's not going to be very different from what you guys have done just now. Okay? I think the last submission that I saw was by Akshita. And again, it's a very nice submission that she has done. A lot of good choice of words and all of that. Right? So I'm going to share a submission with you. Again, it's not, please don't think that, okay, this is the ideal submission. Okay, there's no ideal submission. Radhika, I got a lot of responses. Rutuja, I'm very sorry that I'll not be able to look at everybody's submission. At least about 20, 25 submissions I've got. Okay, but see, whatever you have done, I think it's a good effort. Everybody has written pretty reasonably well. Right? So, what I'm going to show you is something that uh, rather a friend of mine had written. Right? And the language is something which is slightly flowery. Okay, so you don't have to worry too much about the vocab part. Okay, that's the first thing. So don't get fixated on the vocab that you will see here. You don't have to worry about that. But what you need to think about is, what is the plot? The person has picked a plot. Maybe your plot is completely different. Somebody has follow me here has picked a very different plot from what I'm going to show you. Plots can be anything. The way you write it, the way you convey your story is important. I'm going to show a sample again, not like the ideal answer. Please don't think of that. Okay, so this plot is essentially about there's cool wind and all of that. So there's this guy who is walking. The guy is of average build. He had come this far through relentless hard work and patience. Blah blah. He looked up at the building. He could only make out the blurred outline against the moonlit sky. So the sequence that the person has chosen is to basically begin with the moonlit sky. And the element need not be the core of the story. Please understand that. As long as you're able to integrate it in the story, it need not be the core element. He reached the steps that led to the building and blah blah, some arduous journey. He reached the last step, walked up to the door, and pushed it open by the brass knocker. He took a few steps forward, his heavy footfalls echoing to the room. It was darkness. The sole source of illumination was the moonlight. So he could have also, by the way, picked the door and then the moonlight as a sequence, rather than mentioning it in the beginning. Could have been valid then also, and whatever. Now then he moves from there to that person walked till the end of the room where there was a big table, and the room sort of was glorious in the past, but there was a yellowish envelope now addressed to him. He reached out, his fingers shivering, his emotions betraying him. So see, the build-up is what the person has focused on, right? Shivering, emotions, betraying. The choice of words need not be very, very difficult. Okay? Shiver is a very simple word, by the way. I mean, he could have used trembling as a word, or for something else, he could have used some other word, which is more complicated. The point is, you don't have to necessarily have flowery language. He held it back again to regain his composure and reached for it again. The paper felt cool against the skin of his palm. The description is sort of, it's like narrative, it's showing what is happening. Okay, beads of sweat formed on his toe. He allowed himself another moment of whatever. Uh, he turned to leave, but his feet were frozen. So a lot of people felt the feet to be taken as somebody standing on the beach, but somebody can also interpret that as just the feet, right? There's no larger purpose beyond that. Just as somebody said, right, that the what was that? I think there was the one of the images was green door, right? But if you think of it as not a green door, that's a green wall, for example, right? Maybe the brass knocker that you see here is not there, and you just see it to be a green thing, right? It could be considered as a wall also. So there could be differences in terms of how people interpret images also. So just ensure that it doesn't come in your way of writing your story. And then he speaks about he turned to leave, but then his feet were frozen. I thought it was a brown carpet. Which one looks like a brown carpet? Acha, this, okay, yeah. So Abhay is saying that that thing looked like brown carpet. Completely possible, right? I mean, why not? So there's no sort of indication that it has to be a beach. The interpretations are possible. And yeah, so the important thing is how you build those things in your story. Right? The person has chosen four things and has written a story around it. Yeah. This seems like a suicide story. Yeah, it's more like a thriller. Of course, the person who is reading it is possibly hooked to think, okay, what happens from this? That's your aim or goal as a writer to write something which people like. You. Again, not necessary to have maybe a thriller. As somebody said, right? It's a travel adventure kind of a thing that you got a letter and there's Goa ticket. That person decided to leave it on a cliffhanger, as Gary might say. Right? So, जो करना है करो, मैंने तो मेरा काम कर. All right. So now, how to get random images? So how do you practice this? So I just wanted to give you one resource that you can use. There is this very popular game. I don't know how many of you have played this on your phone called Four Words, Four Picks, One Word. So honestly, yes, you have to write the alphabets. Here I have not written it because I had highlighted it, so I decided not to write it. But you're supposed to write it in the beginning. So by the way, Four Picks, One Word is a game which you play, which gives you four images, and there is a theme, and it gives you how many letter theme is that. Okay? So for example, the Jack Sparrow thing that you see there. So there is a Jack Sparrow. There is something else. There's a katana sword holding warrior. There is somebody else who is holding a sword, right? So the theme, they will give you letters that okay, there are five-letter words. So you say okay, sword, right? These four images will be connected. So what I want you to do is just Google four picks one word. You don't have to play the game, by the way. You don't have to install it. There is a website which gives you solution of four picks one word, all the levels. They have on one screen basically put everything. All these images are there. What you can do is pick one image from different puzzles. So what you can do is, for example, uh, I'll try to just make some marking here. Pick one image from, let's say here. Pick one image from, say here. Pick one image from something else. Maybe let's say this. and then pick another one image from tier list. And now you have 4 random images. So there is no difficulty in getting it. That's the point that I'm trying to make. A lot of people ask me, how do I get images? This is how you get images. Because if you start thinking of images from the beginning, you are prejudiced, you are biased, you already know the story. But when these are thrown randomly in front of you, there is a Jack Sparrow, there is birthday party, there is a treasure box, and there is a green clover leaf or something. Write a story now. Random images can be found. Okay? So try to do this. It will just sort of give you a nice exercise that you can you write the story in first person? Yes, you can. There are no restrictions on that. Can we make a random story? Yeah, so let's try that out. Tanvi is asking an interesting one, so maybe we can just try to tackle it here. So Tanvi is asking, can we try to make a random story on the first image sequence of horse and fire extinguisher? Okay, let's try to do it. Uh, all of you try to think of like a 1 or 2 line story and share it in the chat field. I have thought of my story, by the way. Not the best that, again, please note that it's not the best that you can come up with in 1 minute, right? But the point is, that's all that you need to do. I have made my mind as to what I'm going to write here. So Ananya is saying there is a fire in farmhouse and there is e-commerce business that she is going to talk about. Radhika is saying book tickets for horse race, scanned QR code and paid. There was fire and horse ran into half something there. Farmer building stable for horse. As I was about to pay my bill, I noticed there was a fire at a construction site nearby. Everyone was running, even the horses from the horse shed nearby. Okay. A guy wanted a fast-paced life. By using a QR code, his dreams got extinguished and he became a laborer. Okay, interesting. A horse carrying bricks got lost in a maze that looked like a QR code. That's like very, very creative. There used to be a town which was cursed by the ghost of the black horse. People claim to see it and their house is burned. This has now become a famous horror movie. Tickets are available, which people can buy using QR code. Okay, so Hill, again, interesting. So see, the amount of creativity that you have is immense. People always think that they're not creative, but all of you are extremely creative, right? So there's like one lesson that you can take from here, that look at the amount of things that people have come up with, right? Manasvi is saying if Rani Lakshmibai had a QR code to teleport with her house and put the fire to bed that lit her fort, she would have lived on to share her story at TEDx. What creativity! Brilliant. You are free to choose there is a canvas given to you, right? You do what you want to do. By the way, my story was kind of going to be similar. That I was going to go for a horse race and going to pay for that with a QR code. Somebody sort of picked on the similar lines. Okay. We're almost towards the end of the session. I'm just going to give you those last pointers and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah. Four picks one word. Just check for it. I think if you just Google four picks one word, I guess the second or the third link that. So important things now from here till MICAT. At least you need to write something every single day, right? You can't get better at writing without actually writing, and there is no other way to get better. Secondly, typing speed is very important. How many of you know your typing speed? By the way, if you think of it, um, somebody saying 120 words per minute. Really? A lot of you are saying 50, 32, 35, 64, whatever. By the way, there are some tests, right? So you can do that. I have just given one link which you can try. Uh, some words of advice: type on a normal mechanical keyboard. Right? The keyboard that you have on your laptop is very different from what you will get in the at the test venue. So what you need to do is use a normal keyboard, right? Like a regular USB keyboard or something if you have it. Please use that for your typing practice. Do typing practice also daily, maybe 5-10 minutes you can do that. And whatever writing that you're doing, you have to ensure that you type it on screen. Okay? As I said, instead of perfecting particular answer, try to finish things in 18 minutes, 20 minutes. After that, if you have whatever time left, you can improvise. So if you felt that, okay, maybe I should add some examples, maybe I should add some words here and there, right? You can do that. Okay? There could be some grammatical errors that happen. So maybe you want to just keep those last 5 minutes to maybe read have a quick glance at the answer that you have written. Is it necessary that story should have a message? No, not. Story is like very arbitrary, it did not have a message. And as we discussed, focus on the structure. So what structure you're going to follow? A, B, C, D, B, D, C, A, whatever. Then clarity of thoughts. So especially the first three questions, Q1, Q2, Q3, will demand more clarity of thoughts compared to Q4. Right? Examples are very important. You can use examples across questions from Q1 to Q4. And last bit, the creativity part of the Q4 is very important. So that's it from my side. I had this as the deck. I hope that it has helped you guys. It has given you some interesting things to consider, look at, maybe read up more about, some thought process that you can implement it in your own writing. Bye, everyone.